10 years ago, Miles Harland didn't just purchase a dying chain of stores from a retiring owner. He poured his heart, his soul, and the best years of his life into building something that could outlast him. There were no investors backing him, no flashy branding or corporate fanfare. Just one man, fueled by grit and a quiet belief that real success was built slowly, from the ground up. And somehow, he'd made it work. 14 locations now stretched across 3 cities, all posting stable profits and steady growth. But when a business grows too fast, the cracks rarely start on the surface. It wasn't customers complaining. No, they were happy. The complaints were quieter, hidden in anonymous employee surveys, bleeding through in subtle but piercing lines. No breaks. No one to swap shifts. Working overnight feels like being a zombie. Door 9 is hell. No one cares. Miles read those lines over and over late into the night, and with every word, a weight settled deeper in his chest. He realized something uncomfortable. He had never met the night shift crew at Store 9. In fact, he'd never even visited the store after dark. Store 9 was one of the newest additions, opened during a rapid expansion wave. To most employees, the owner was just a name on their paycheck. Some mystery guy in a New York office, probably old, definitely distant, and completely detached. Even during his rare daytime visits, nobody recognized him. And truth be told, he liked it that way. But this time, his anonymity wasn't just a preference. It was a strategy. He needed to see the truth with his own eyes. So, Miles disguised himself and stepped into the very world he had built, not as a creator, but as one of them. He dyed his salt and pepper hair a dull brown, shaved his beard, threw on thick-rimmed glasses, and trained his voice to sound wary, like a man just trying to pick up some extra hours to make rent. His name tag read, Mike. He applied through the same temp agency his own company used when stores were understaffed. The night shift manager, Derek, didn't ask any questions. He just sounded exhausted. 10 p.m. tonight. We're slammed. We're black. You'll be on register, he said over the phone, barely taking a breath. At exactly 10 p.m., Miles showed up. He didn't know it then, but the hours ahead would change the way he saw his company and himself. Forever. Store 9 sat just off the highway, a 24-hour gas station and convenience hub that, from the outside, looked clean and well-lit. But inside, the air was heavy, almost oppressive, as if the walls themselves were tired. The night crew was just 2 people. A tall, quiet guy named Kenny, who stocked shelves without a word, and a young, pale woman at the register named Jenna. She couldn't have been more than her early 20s, but her face was worn down by exhaustion, deep circles under her eyes, a crooked name tag, a uniform that looked like it had slept on a couch. "You the new guy?" Jenna asked as he walked in. Her voice was raspy, like her throat hadn't touched water all day. "Yeah, Mike," he replied, forcing a small, awkward smile. She didn't say anything else, just handed him a headset and pointed at the login screen. No Derek, no supervisor. Just 3 people, and one very long night ahead. After midnight, customers began to taper off. Jenna barely spoke. Her steps grew slower, heavier. She blinked more than she talked, and Miles noticed her swaying slightly. Something wasn't right. "You okay?" he asked, concern threading through his voice. "Yeah," she replied with a weak smile. "Just tired. Didn't sleep much." But Miles had seen this kind of fatigue before. He remembered it from his own early days when he worked 3 jobs and slept 4 hours. The kind of exhaustion that turns your bones to concrete, but you keep going because you have no other choice. At 1:30 a.m., a customer came in to grab some snacks. Jenna stepped up to the register, scanned each item with trembling hands. When she reached for the change, her body lurched forward, and in an instant, she collapsed behind the counter. Miles froze. For one terrible second, the world stopped. There was no CEO, no growth projections, no multi-city strategy. It was just a human being, broken down in silence right in front of him. He rushed around the counter and dropped to his knees beside her. She was breathing, but barely. Her eyes were fluttering like she was trapped in a nightmare. From the back, Kenny sprinted forward, his face white with panic. "Call someone," Miles shouted, his voice raw, slipping from the character he was playing. I think she has diabetes," Kenny stammered, tearing open a candy bar with shaking hands. He gently lifted Jenna's head and tried to coax a bite between her lips. Miles held her hand. It was ice cold and shaking uncontrollably. His heart thundered, not from shock, but from something much deeper. Guilt that he hadn't seen this coming. Guilt that people like Jenna had been collapsing in silence while he looked at spreadsheets. He didn't waste another second. He pulled out his phone and called for an ambulance. 15 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed against the front windows. The paramedics moved fast, checking her vitals, reading her blood sugar. One of them turned to Miles. "It's a hypoglycemic episode. She missed meals, didn't take insulin properly. She's stable now, but she never should have been working in this condition." Jenna lay on the stretcher, barely conscious, but trying to talk. "I'm sorry. I couldn't call off," she murmured between shallow breaths. "I already missed 2 shifts this month," Derek said. "If I missed one more, I'd be let go." The words hit Miles like a gut punch. She hadn't just passed out from a medical condition. She had collapsed trying not to lose her job. And in that moment, Miles Harland, the owner, the boss, the builder of it all, finally saw what his employees had been carrying in silence. Her words cut deep, like a knife straight to Miles' chest. He stood frozen, jaw clenched so tightly it ached. Thoughts slammed into each other inside his head like a thunderstorm spiraling out of control. He turned to Kenny, voice hoarse, almost breaking. "How often does something like this happen?" Kenny lowered his head, avoiding eye contact. "He's blacked out twice this month already. Last time it was in the bathroom." She walked out, pale as a sheet. "I told Derek," he added, voice dropping. "He said Jenna needed to toughen up, or find another job." Fire surged inside Miles' chest, a burning anger not just at Derek, but at himself. Derek had always looked good on paper, always hit sales targets, never once requested staffing assistance. A manager who bragged about running a tight ship, but no one had ever told him about Jenna. Not a single report had mentioned blackouts. Not one line warned of a girl collapsing from exhaustion. When the EMTs lifted Jenna onto the stretcher, Miles stepped forward and said calmly but firmly, "Her medical bills, I'll cover them. Use the company's emergency health grant." No one asked why. They understood. Back inside the store, Kenny dropped into a seat behind the counter, his posture slumped, his eyes distant. "I don't know how much longer I can do this, man," he muttered. "There's just 2 of us at night. Derek won't approve more coverage. He says running it lean builds character." Miles nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the room. Trash cans overflowed. Snack shelves sat half empty. The walk-in freezer was leaking water down the tile floor. This wasn't tight management. This was neglect. Plain and simple. Miles didn't leave. He stayed. He took out the trash, mopped the floor, covered the registers so Kenny, for the first time in weeks, could take a real break. When the sun finally broke the horizon, Miles walked out of Store 9 and sat in his car. The early morning light poured across his face, still wearing the look of Mike. But the man beneath that disguise? He was done pretending. He knew he couldn't stay silent any longer. The following night, Miles returned. Not as Mike, not in a borrowed uniform, but as himself, Miles Harlan. A dark coat, a steady stride, a heart finally ready to face the truth. At 10:05 p.m., the automatic doors slid open, letting in a breeze of chilled air. Under flickering fluorescent lights, Store 9 looked almost unchanged, like a place that hadn't been cared for in years. Kenny stood behind the register, one hand tapping keys, the other gripping a mop. He looked up. Recognition flashed across his face. His posture straightened like a soldier. "You're the owner." Miles gave a small nod. "Miles Harlan." Kenny stepped out from behind the counter, wiping his palms nervously on his pants. "Hey, didn't know you were coming. Is there something you need?" "I need to speak with the manager. Derek's on tonight, right?" Kenny hesitated. He usually rolls in around midnight. Doesn't stay long. Checks the cameras from home most of the time. Miles' tone deepened. "Live nearby?" "About a 15-minute drive." Miles nodded. "And we wait." At 11:20 p.m., Derek walked in. Bluetooth earpiece in one ear, half-eaten sandwich in his hand, muttering something about invoices. He didn't even glance at the counter. But then his eyes caught the man standing quietly near the back aisle. He stopped mid-step. "Can I help you?" he asked cautiously. "You can," Miles said, voice calm but with an edge of steel. "I'm the reason you have a job." Derek blinked. "Wait. Miles Harlan?" His tone dropped, uncertain. "No one told me you were coming." "You weren't supposed to know," Miles said evenly. "It was here last night. Undercover." Derek's jaw twitched. "You what?" "I worked the overnight shift." Jenna collapsed behind the register. "We had to call an ambulance." Derek rolled his eyes, then quickly tried to hide it. "She's got medical issues. I've told her she needs to manage it better." Miles took a step forward. "She wasn't managing it, she was surviving. And you gave her an ultimatum: show up or lose her job. She nearly died trying to meet your expectations." Derek folded his arms defensively. "She's missed too many shifts. I run a business. I can't have people calling off whenever they feel like it." "No," Miles replied sharply. "You don't run a business. You're running people into the ground." The truth came pouring out. Employees for an entire store. The manager who barely showed up, managing through security cameras. No crisis reporting. No staffing request. Economics no support. "But we're still hitting targets," Derek said firmly. "We're delivering results." Miles didn't flinch. "You want pretty numbers, or do you want your staff to make it home alive?" Then, without raising his voice, he delivered the blow. "You're done. Effective immediately." "What? You're firing me?" "You were never fit to lead people. Your last paycheck will be issued this week. HR will contact you." Derek scoffed. "You're making a mistake." Miles didn't respond. He simply turned to Kenny. "Can you cover the counter for 30 minutes? I need to speak with the rest of the team." They moved into the tiny break room. The air inside was thick with burnt coffee and the sour smell of neglect. Miles sat down across from Kenny at a cold metal table. "What's your current schedule?" 5 nights a week, 10 p.m. to 6. Sometimes later if the morning shift is late," Kenny said, folding his arms. "I didn't speak up. I need the hours, gotta pay rent." "You shouldn't have to choose between your health and your housing," Miles said quietly. "What about the others? Who else works nights?" "Just me and Jenna. Sometimes Lewis, but he quit last week, said he couldn't handle the stress anymore." Miles ran a hand down his face. "Tired. Is this store the only one like this, or are others the same?" Kenny hesitated. "I've heard from folks at store 5 and 11, same deal. Always short at night. Managers don't want to ask for help. It makes them look weak." "Did Jenna ever report any of this?" "She emailed a few times, never got a reply." Miles stood, his voice firm now. I need to meet with the full team. Anyone on morning shift I should talk to? Kenny thought for a second. Angela. She's solid. Cleans up after us every morning, doesn't complain, but she's stretched thin too. Once, Angela said, her voice low, I brought it up to Derek. He told me to clock out if I didn't like the workload. Miles nodded again. This time the gesture carried a heaviness. Derek won't be coming back, he said, voice steady. That kind of attitude ends here. Angela blinked, stunned. He's been fired? Last night, effective immediately. She exhaled slowly, like releasing a weight she'd carried for years. Thank you, she said quietly. Not just for me, but for everyone else. That afternoon, Miles called HR. He approved hazard pay for all overnight workers. He ordered a company waste audit of night shift conditions. He needed to know how many other Jennas had been left behind in the dark. That evening he returned to Store 9. No disguise, no alias. Just Miles Harland, stepping into the place he owned with a purpose that finally felt clear. He brought in 2 assistant managers from nearby stores. He appointed one of them, a calm, focused woman named Lisette, as interim store manager. You have full authority to hire, train, and rebuild from the ground up, Miles told her. You report directly to me until this place runs the way it should. Lisette nodded. First thing, I'm adding a 3rd person to every night shift. Good, Miles said. Second thing, a full staff meeting. I want to know what they actually need, not what's been reported. That night, for the first time in a long time, Miles didn't feel like a stranger walking his own floor. He felt like a leader doing his job, the part they never put on quarterly slides. By Friday, word had started to spread. The owner had worked an overnight shift. Not to inspect, not for show, but to scrub floors, run the register, bag chips. Some workers were skeptical, some cautiously hopeful. Miles didn't send out a memo. He just showed up again. This time, he stayed in the back office, quietly observing Lisette's first managed shift. She had already staffed up, brought in a part-timer from Store 4, someone who needed the hours. The change wasn't dramatic, but it was real. Kenny stocked shelves without racing the clock. Angela left sticky notes with prep tasks for the morning. And, for the first time in weeks, it looked like they might actually get done. Just after midnight, Miles called Lisette into the office. First impressions? He asked. Lisette sat down, composed but candid. This store's salvageable, she said, but it's going to take more than a few new mop heads. She handed him a stack of papers. Had everyone fill out anonymous surveys. Most of them didn't even wait until break. They were just glad someone was finally asking. Miles flipped through the pages slowly. He didn't speak. Lisette broke the silence. There's a lot of anger in there, not just at Derek, at the system. They feel like they've been invisible for years. You're not wrong, Miles said, setting the stack down. And it's not just this store. I've already started pulling reports across the company. Night shift injuries aren't being reported. The highest turnover is in stores where managers don't physically show up after dark. Lisette nodded. If you want my advice, cut the bonuses for managers who only hit sales numbers. Tie incentives to staff retention, incident resolutions, and internal feedback. If someone's burning through employees to make budget, they don't deserve a bonus. Miles looked at her, impressed. Write that up. Send it to me and HR on Monday. She didn't hesitate. I will. Before leaving, Miles found Kenny restocking energy drinks. You didn't have to come back, Kenny said, surprised. He did, Miles replied. I needed to see what happens after the cleanup. Anyone can fix things for a few days. What matters is what lasts. Kenny looked down, hesitant. Jenna, is she okay? She's out of the hospital, resting. I spoke with her today. We're paying her while she recovers, and we're retroactively enrolling her in company health coverage. Kenny exhaled, visibly relieved. She'll be glad. She asked about you. Said, you're the only reason she got through most nights. Kenny turned away. I just did what anyone should have done. Miles replied, voice low. That's the problem. Too many people didn't. 10 minutes later, Kenny sat in the office, still in his apron, nervously fiddling with the edge of a receipt. I'm not trying to move up, he said quickly. I'm not the manager type. I'm not offering you a promotion, Miles said. I'm asking for honesty. What do you need to do this job without burning out? And she paused. Rotating weekend shifts. It's always the same people covering. Better lighting in the walk-in cooler. I've been using a flashlight for months. And longer breaks. At 10 minutes, give us 20. Enough time to eat without rushing like we're in a war zone. Miles nodded. All of that sounds reasonable. Kenny hesitated. And just someone being here. Not to criticize, just to be present. Sometimes, that's enough. Miles didn't respond right away. He walked over, opened the bottom drawer of a filing cabinet, and pulled out a small black notebook. I'm starting something new, he said. Every store gets a logbook. Staff can write down notes, concerns, ideas, whatever's real, and I'll read every single one. Myself weekly. Kenny blinked. Are you serious? Miles slid the notebook across the desk. Started tonight. By 3:00 a.m., the store was calm. The low hum of the refrigeration units was the only sound. Miles stood in a corner, watching the team move. Not frantically, not aimlessly. With rhythm, with purpose. Not perfect, but finally functioning. He left an hour later. A notebook under his arm. 3 entries already filled its pages. The next morning, Miles walked into corporate headquarters for the first time all week. His assistant handed him a stack of memos. He didn't read them. He called an emergency meeting with the entire executive team. No slides. No numbers. No buzzwords. I worked night shift for 3 nights this week, he said. What I found wasn't a staffing issue. It was a leadership failure, including mine. Around the table, a few execs exchanged glances. One director, Susan, leaned in. You're saying the system's broken? I'm saying we forgot that behind every metric is a human being. Then Miles outlined the changes. A complete bonus structure overhaul. Mandatory night shift walkthroughs for every district manager. A staff logbook in every store. A rotating review board to assess serious internal issues. All effective immediately, he finished. No exceptions. Another exec, Jordan, raised an eyebrow. You're shifting a lot of power to frontline workers. There'll be friction. Miles didn't flinch. And let there be friction. If a little pushback stops someone from collapsing behind a register, I can live with that. After the meeting, Miles called Jenna. She picked up after a few rings. Her voice was quiet, but steady. I just wanted to say, thank you for not pretending it didn't happen. You don't need to thank me, Miles replied. You just need to focus on getting better. When you're ready, your job is waiting. On your terms. And if you want something else, we'll help you get there. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked softly, Can I write something in that notebook? Miles looked down at the small black journal in his hand. You already did, he said. First page. After the call ended, he opened the notebook again and read the lines she'd written. It hit him like a needle to the heart. If someone had just listened the first time, this never would have happened. He closed the book slowly and stared out the window. He didn't need another report. Another chart. Another meeting with metrics and margins. He already knew what he needed to do next. This wasn't about showing up once. This wasn't about optics. He had to return, not for appearance but for good. The following week, just before sunset, Miles came back to Store 9. He didn't bring an entourage. No clipboard, no suits, no speech. Just a laptop and a worn leather folder filled with handwritten notes. He waited in the back office while Lysette finished onboarding a new part-time stock associate, a young man named Devin who was being shadowed by Kenny. There was a slight shift in the store's energy. The shelves were neater. The front register no longer overflowed with broken pens and crumpled receipts. But the exhaustion still lingered. It was the kind that couldn't be swept away in a week. Miles understood something most executives forgot. There's no schedule for rebuilding trust. When Lysette finally entered the office, she shut the door quietly behind her. "I've got a few night shift candidates lined up for next week," she said, placing a folded schedule on the desk. "But we're still short one full-time." "Davin's only part-time," Miles said. "How's he doing so far?" "He's got potential," she replied, "but it's his first time working overnights. His first night here, he didn't even bring a coat. Didn't realize he'd be helping unload freezer deliveries." She sat down across from Miles, her posture calm but firm. "I told Kenny to mentor him. No solo shifts until he's ready." "Good." Miles nodded. "No rush." He opened the folder. Inside were 3 resignation letters from store managers across the region. After the new night shift policies and performance audits had rolled out company-wide, not everyone stuck around. Lysette glanced at the papers. "More pushback?" Stated. "They weren't forced out," Miles replied. "They left." Said the new structure didn't suit their leadership style. Lysette gave a dry exhale. Translation: they didn't want to be held accountable. Miles didn't argue. Ain't will replace them. "But this time we're not hiring based on resume length. We're hiring people who know the floor, not just spreadsheets." She leaned forward slightly. "There's someone at Store 5, a lingerie assistant manager for 2 years. Ran the store solo for 3 weeks when the manager went on leave. Never missed a shift. Doesn't shout, but people follow her. Have her come in next week," Miles said. "I'll sit in on the interview." Before Lysette could respond, Kenny knocked gently on the door. Miles motioned him in. Kenny pushed it open with his elbow, balancing 2 coffee cups in one hand. "Wasn't sure how you'd take it," he said, "so I guessed." Miles took the cup, genuinely touched. "Thanks." Kenny didn't sit. Devin asked if he could switch his shift next Thursday. His kid's usual sitter, his mom, is out of town. Lysette stood. Angela said she could cover. She just wanted to check with us first. Miles nodded. "As long as she doesn't go over 40 hours that week, it's approved." Kenny gave a small nod, turned to leave, and then paused. "Ooh, I talked to Jenna this morning. She says she's feeling better. She wants to come back." Miles looked up. "You ready?" Doctor cleared her. "But she wants to ease in. She's nervous. Doesn't want to feel like a burden. Tell her to come in Friday afternoon. Start her on a mid-shift. No register unless she's comfortable." Kenny gave a quiet thanks and stepped out. Lysette waited until the door clicked shut. "She's going to need someone to guide her back in," she said. "Not just train her. You want me to assign someone?" Miles shook his head. "I'll do it. She deserves to see that what happened wasn't routine." That night, Miles walked the aisles again. At the snack shelf, he found Devin stocking bags of chips. The kid moved fast, but his eyes kept darting toward the clock. "You doing okay?" Miles asked. Devin startled, then nodded. "Yeah, just trying to finish this before break." "You don't have to rush," Miles said. Take the full 15. Devin blinked. I thought we only got 10. Not anymore, Miles said. System-wide change. You'll get the memo tomorrow. Devin studied him. You're the owner, right? I am. Devin nodded slowly. Didn't think someone like you would actually show up here. My last job, Regional didn't even know we had a night crew. I didn't either, Miles admitted. Not really. That's why I'm here now. Vaughn shrugged. Well, thanks for the break. Miles nodded and continued his walk. He stopped at the cooler. The lights had been replaced. No more flickering. A small change. But it mattered. He made a mental note to check on other stores. In the back storage area, something caught his eye. A single sheet of paper taped to the wall. Night shift wins. Handwritten, simple, honest. Each day had a line to log what went right. Wednesday, all shelves stocked on time. Saturday, no register errors. Monday, Devon remembered to lock the rear gate. No reminder. Miles smiled faintly. He hadn't ordered it, which made it even better. Just as he was about to shut his laptop for the night, a message popped up from HR. The safety audit for Store 11 was complete. Multiple violations. Broken freezer doors. Missing first aid kits. Contained overtime logged manually. The manager, Craig, had been warned 3 times. Nothing had changed. Miles didn't hesitate. He called the regional lead directly. Remove Craig by the end of the day, he said flatly. Have HR reach out to the staff for exit interviews. Same standards across the board, no exceptions. The next morning, he sat in front of the board of directors. Some of them were concerned. Retention costs were up. The new bonus structure was controversial. An older member, a former finance executive, leaned in. Margins are tightening, he said. This is a lot of change at once. Miles took a breath and then spoke clearly. For years, we've squeezed the bottom of this company in the name of efficiency. And the price was paid by people. People who show up when no one else will. We're not losing money. We're finally spending it where it matters. Later that day, Miles returned to Store 9 one last time that week. At 3:00 p.m. sharp, Jenna walked in. She wore a fresh uniform. Her expression was calm, grounded. She didn't say much, just nodded when Miles greeted her. He handed her a printed schedule. No back-to-back shifts. No solo coverage. No registered duty unless she asked for it. She read it in silence and folded it carefully. I thought I'd be replaced, she said. People like me usually are. Miles looked at her and said gently, You weren't the problem. You were the warning. She didn't cry. She didn't thank him. She just nodded. That night, Miles left later than he'd planned. As he stepped through the front doors, he paused and turned, looked back. The store wasn't perfect. The display was crooked. A spill near the freezer hadn't been cleaned yet. But the people inside weren't invisible anymore. And for now, that was enough. He would be back.